So yeah, thanks everyone for joining. My name is Jake Retzinger. I'm in the digital practice here at EY. And let me see if I can flip to the slide. And we're really excited to host TechX yet again with MCG for what feels like the 10th time now. It was started when a couple of us were in MCG, and now it continues to grow, and it's an awesome program. Really happy to see it continue to grow. Has a ton of support from leadership at EY to the top levels of the firm, which is awesome. And really excited to see it evolve again this year. So we have Alana as well here, and I'll let everyone introduce themselves in a second. And I think we've had Adam join. I don't know because there's so many people on this call.
I'm here.
But yeah, okay, cool, we got him. So just to give a quick overview of what we're gonna do tonight and who we are, we're gonna walk through kind of an intro to design thinking and, intro to design thinking and what it is, how we use it in our day-to-day, specifically myself and Alana in digital transformation. And then we're going to walk through kind of a design thinking activity that will really help you understand how it's used I guess, with respect to this specific case that we're talking about. So we've worked with MCG for the past couple of weeks to put together a pretty thorough activity that will at least give you a flavor of what we're looking to do. So just a quick overview of who we are, and Matt, if you've joined, I'll let you wrap this up at the end. My name is Jake Retzinger. I am a senior in the digital transformation practice. I was a Watson student at Binghamton, and I was in MCG for, I think, since its inception. I was the president my junior year, and so it's like kind of a little child to me, and I really love it. So I've been working in digital and product management at EY for the past 2 to 3 years, and been helping run TechX ever since leaving Binghamton. Alana, I'll toss it to you.
Yep. Hey, Jake. Hey, everyone else. I also went to Binghamton and studied in Watson, industrial and systems engineering. I have been working in digital transformation and product management for about 1.5 years, and at EY for 2. I wasn't in MTG, but I did take part in the TechX competition, and I think that it really spearheaded my interest in consulting, and really got me interested and more comfortable with cases and the whole case interview process. So I definitely recommend the competition overall, and definitely think that MCG is doing great work to help get you all ready for graduation and joining the industry.
Adam, we'll throw it to you.
I guess that's.
Oh, look at you! You have the background too.
Yeah, outfitted with orientation this way. There we go. Yep. Yeah, and we thank recruiting for these nice templates. But hi everyone, I'm Adam Pitkin. Sorry, it's a couple minutes late there, but I'm a senior consultant in what is now our business consulting practice, which encompasses a lot of things. So within business consulting, I'm part of our technology risk group, and within our technology risk group, I tend to focus on third-party risk management, transformation engagements. I graduated from Binghamton the same year as Jake. We spent time on the e-board together. Our relationship actually dates back further than that. We know each other from high school through college, been around the block together. When we were a part of the MCG e-board together, Jake had developed a relationship at EY with another stakeholder of ours who supports this initiative, Dan Goldberg. It's a name you may have heard. If not, if you're fortunate to make it to the final round, you'll hopefully get a chance to meet him. But between Jake and Dan, the idea of this competition was really to provide students with an opportunity to take a traditional business case and think about it in a technology lens, or have a problem that has a technology component, to really put students in the position of problem solvers in our industry today, where there's almost always going to be a technology component at the core of every problem we help our clients solve. So we're hoping that this competition gives you a chance to get some outside the classroom, outside the textbook experience, that hopefully also gets you excited about potentially a career in consulting. and really gives you supplemental experiences that you can't get through your coursework. So happy to see we have a lot of participants in the call today, and Jake and Alana will be taking you all through some really great content. So looking forward to observing.
All right, I'll wrap up the introductions. My name is Matt Dubinsky. I graduated in 2018. I took ISC, which is Industrial and Systems Engineering, with Alana, and I'm in the business consulting practice along with Adam. I'm a newly promoted senior, and I've worked in the practice for 2 years now, and I've had the opportunity to work on cloud risk implementation projects as well as IT audits. So happy to join you guys and happy to witness a collaboration between the two groups. Yes.
Thanks, Matt. You would have no idea I work with Zoom on a daily basis. I can't ever get off mute. Yeah, so I wanted to pause here really quick. I'll let the words. Is there anything that we need to do for attendance, guys, or has everyone already filled it out?
I just dropped the link in the chat one more time. We had about 10 more participants join in while you guys are speaking. So if you haven't filled out the form yet, just quickly take 30 seconds. Just copy and paste it. Really appreciate it.
And Joe, we're good with my screen, right? You're seeing the deck?
Yep, you're all good.
Okay.
And Jake, maybe just wait like a minute or two quickly for anyone who hasn't done attendance yet, so that they're not multitasking.
Good call.
Maybe Joe, I know it's kind of probably was more for the wrap up piece, but just since we want to give people a minute or two to do attendance right now, if you want to just do a quick recap of upcoming dates, when cases are due, when presentations will be for first round.
Yeah, perfect. So tomorrow we're hosting our data visualization and Tableau workshop, same time, 6 o'clock on Zoom. There'll be a reminder email going out tomorrow. If you have no to minimal experience using Tableau, using data visualization, or if you do have any experience using Tableau, I think this workshop, really be beneficial in the data component of the case, which is new to TechX this year. It's not something that's been done in the past. So we'll be doing a guided exercise, teaching you how to, fully use Tableau from an introductory standpoint. On Thursday, we're hosting our financials workshop. I know students have Management 111, so if you're unable to attend, you'll be able to get the workshop information. Just reach out to us or we may send it out. And then next week, Monday and Tuesday, we'll be hosting on Monday, implementation and risk workshop. And Tuesday is PowerPoint and public speaking. Your presentation is going to be due Thursday night at 11:59. You'll send it over to the consulting email and you'll present Friday during the day between 12 and 5. Sign up information for round one will be coming out later in the week. So thank you for that. And I think we should be all set with attendance. So EY, take it away.
All right, let's do it. So what Alana and I are going to do over the next 5-ish minutes is kind of really set the stage for why TechX is being framed like this and what the difference is between the way we would traditionally do cases and solve problems versus the way this case is going to be run. We've done similar sessions before. We actually run an internal competition in this exact manner for our first year digital analysts. So we'll just walk through why this shift, and I can't figure out how PowerPoint works today. We'll just talk through kind of why design thinking has become really relevant and where the value lies and why we have a whole practice focused around it. So just to give you context, in this new era of, technologies everywhere, you're constantly on your phone. I think my screen time average is maybe 8.5 hours a day. It's awful, but consumers are now spending more than 5 hours a day on their smartphones, with 50% of them saying that they are using their smartphones and different browsers or whatever apps, whatever it may be, to find new brands or products. For example, I'm a sucker for any good Instagram ad after they listen to me enough, and I feel like I'm buying a new one every week. And that's the way a lot of people are discovering different brands and products, especially some smaller niche brands. And There's also a stat around those who are fully engaged represent a 23% premium in profitability, revenue, and relationship growth compared to the average customer, essentially hammering home the point that brand loyalty and constant engagement with a brand has shown to boost profitability and increase revenues and also retain those customers. And we're seeing a larger amount of people becoming more loyal to certain brands as their relationship evolves. And then 70% of customers say technology has made it easier than ever to take their business elsewhere. So this doesn't go against what I just said, but pretty much what we're saying is that if you need an alternative to something, or if you have a poor experience, you're no longer tied to one or two options. It's really easy to go somewhere else and find a different product, a different service. There's always some sort of set of reviews around a certain product or service on any of these certain apps. And so companies' investments, because of this, companies' investments in technology have become incredibly higher on their list of priorities, because they know that in order to retain customers, they need to be engaging with their customers daily, and they need to be providing a top-notch experience. And this leads into one of the most powerful facts we have here is a 2% increase in customer retention has the same effect as decreasing cost by 10%. So what we're saying here is that a lot of times, in a consulting case or a competition, you'll get the problem of how do we cut costs by 10%, or how do we increase revenue by 10%, whatever it may be, right? You're used to throwing a profitability framework at the problem and trying to figure out, okay, how do I get the cost down to X or Y? Well, the approach we're taking here is actually not the opposite, but it's a different way to solve the same problem. And what we're saying is, if we find a way to increase customer retention by 2%, we're essentially solving the same bottom line goal. And that'll be really key as you kind of go through this entire process throughout TechX. You'll realize that we're really focused on the customer experience, the different steps they're taking throughout the journey. And you'll hear this term pain points a lot, and it's how we're solving the customer's pain points. So that's just something to keep in mind, when we're solving this problem. As we go through the exercise today, as you go through TechX for the next couple of months, think about it from the end user's perspective. How are they impacted by each step? What are the issues or roadblocks they're running into? And how are we solving them? So that's it for that point right there. And then our last one to wrap this up is, even a modest improvement in customer experience can help a billion-dollar company increase revenue by over 700 million across 3 years. You see a lot of new app features coming out, and a lot of that is to not only increase customer retention and attract new customers, but it's to bolster the existing customer experience. And as you remain more loyal to a certain brand, or you move to a new brand, obviously that brand's customer base is at a minimum staying the same, and potentially even growing. We see a lot in financial services where the whole goal is to keep your customer engaged with you as their sole financial provider. And what that does is they will now be more involved in your life on a day-to-day basis. They'll handle maybe your savings and checkings, but as your relationship grows and they trust you more and they're more loyal, maybe they handle your investments, they help plan your estate, they handle your retirement, whatever it may be. So our whole goal here is to deliver and what Alana and I do on a daily basis with our clients is, how do we provide the best customer experience? And how do we deliver that through some of these digital products? It's not always an iPhone app. I would actually say it's rarely an iPhone app. Sometimes it's trading platforms. Sometimes it's a money movement tool for a wealth advisor, whatever it may be. But the bottom line is, a lot of the way we use the thinking you're about to see is to create a new technology product. So I'll pause there if there's any questions, or Alana, if you have anything to add on the initial slides. If not, I'll let you take over with the D-School methodology.
All right, I'm gonna see if I can request to control.
Yeah, all right, I think we got it.
Yeah?
Nope.
Okay, that's all
I
right.
have my system preferences set up.
You'll know when to change
Yeah,
it. Fine. Okay, cool. So, all right. So the Stanford D-School methodology is something that we follow a lot in our practice, almost always. So basically, take like a control for a gaming platform. So that was initially created so that you could control the gaming controls in a game. Initially, it was made with a wire that went through it. Initially, maybe it wasn't so comfortable on your hands, but over time and after many iterations, they, made more comfortable ones. They made wireless ones, and obviously that product has evolved a really long way. So, sort of how we utilize this methodology is kind of to do just that. We take a lot of the customer pain points that we hear and the initial problems, and we iterate over time to find the best solutions. So these are the 5 steps of the Stanford D-School methodology, where we really put the customer at the center and figure out what is the best solution to solve the problem at hand, rather than, I guess, just getting a problem and going straight to a solution. This is a more timely process where you really take the time to understand and empathize, as you see, to get to the best and most innovative solution. So if we go to the next slide, we'll see the first step is to empathize. Empathy is understanding and hearing the customer's needs and attitudes and desires. And through that, finding common pain points. So if you interview 30 people and all of them say that their hands are really, really tired and uncomfortable while holding their current gaming controller, then maybe that the most important thing going forward is making a more ergonomic gaming controller. If maybe 10 of the people also said that, they need a wireless one, then maybe that's your second most important feature. So all of this comes into play throughout the whole product management process, but empathizing is really to find out what the user needs and what they desire and what their pain points are. And we do that through user interviews, surveying, all different sort of tactics. Defining is really defining the problem by using those common pain points. So someone might come to you with a really large problem, like I need a better gaming controller, and that's, it could go very, very many ways, but in the define phase, you'll take that problem and kind of funnel it down to a more pointed solution. So, I need a gaming controller that can, sit in my hands for X amount of time, or that can, I'm having trouble with this one product I gave you, but basically it's taking a very big problem that you've gotten and making it a little bit more pointed and easier to innovate on and create a product from. So identifying common behavioral patterns among the users and developing a persona to represent the target and visualize their current experience. So as you'll see later when the MCG team takes over, there'll be a bunch of personas that you'll get for the problem that they give you. And these personas basically represent the customer or the people who will be using and interacting with your product. So for example, this gaming controller problem that I keep bringing up would be, maybe the gamer, or if you're in a 2-player game, the person you're playing against. For like a banking app, it could be like the person, like the customer, and then also maybe like the person on the back end. So these are just like common people who will be interacting and need to use whatever it is that you're making. So the customer. The ideate phase is when you actually leverage these insights to start brainstorming solutions. So the really important thing to remember during this phase is that nothing is a bad idea. Nothing is, out of sorts. You can really brainstorm and write down anything during this phase. And the most valuable part of this is ideating as many solutions as you can, and more often than not, you'll end up pulling in ideas from various solutions to create your solution. So I wouldn't throw any solutions away at the beginning of this phase, but rather keep iterating and thinking and using these solutions to get towards the best one. This is a really great phase also to utilize a lot of great tools that there are out there. We like using Mural, which I think you guys are going to be using later, but there's a lot of great product management tools out there where you can collaborate, especially virtually, which is very in tune with the times. And it's really nice and great to play around with, and really great tools for ideating.
I think Alana will skip this quick because we're going to come back to the activity, but then we can focus on what's next.
So once you ideate and you find the solution that you want to go with and move forward with, you'll get to your next few steps. So as you can see here, this is where I got that gaming controller example, but prototyping is the next step, and that's when you're going to actually make a visual or actual representation of this idea, whether it be a wireframe of an app, a sketch of what it is that you're developing, actually creating the app in a online platform. We use Sketch or Figma in our practice, and this is where the product actually starts to come to life. And then lastly is testing. So that's obviously when you'll take your finished product and you'll test it with those users. And a lot of times this is when you'll have to go back and iterate, because you'll see, okay, this isn't working so well, people don't like this, or maybe it'll be a bug or something, and you'll have to go back and iterate and test some more. So a lot of times this process is a cycle that just keeps going around and around, but I mean, that's how most products are. So if you think of like the iPhone from 10 years ago to the iPhone from now, obviously that's been a continuous circle. They haven't just dropped the iPhone and said, all right, that's it, no more iPhones. They come out with a new one every year. So these are just some examples of products that we've delivered in our practice. We've covered a wide variety of different industries and different products, portals and mobile apps, cruise ship applications. We made a website for a digital school of medicine. What?
I was going to say the digital school of medicine is like one of the coolest ones we've done.
Yeah, and now we're helping with a lot of like unemployment sites with COVID-19. So there's a lot of different opportunities. Like you never really run out of products that need to be made. So it's definitely a really cool space to be in right now.
I think that also leads in really well to kind of the activity that Joe and team will take you through in a minute, but like you can really apply what Alana just walked you through to almost any problem you're faced with. So I think that's just something to keep in mind. It doesn't have to be for a specific problem that's been defined for you. Like there will be times when it's rather vague as to what you're solving, but at the same time, as you dig more and dig deeper through some of the steps Alana outlined, especially up front in the empathize phase, you can really uncover what the true problem is, or multiple problems, whatever it may be.
And if you miss any of that, if I talk too fast, because I have a tendency to do that, all you have to do is go online and search Stanford D-School methodology, and there's like so many like great resources that you can do to read up on this. I recommend, if you are doing the case competition and obviously you want to implement this methodology, I would definitely recommend watching some YouTube videos about it. I think that could really help, get more expertise than this workshop would give you. So to expand on that. It's called the D-School methodology.
So Jake, Alana, a lot we just covered, right? If there's one thing I'm to take away on this methodology, would you say that it is to put the customer at the center of the problem?
Definitely. I think that when you get a problem statement, it'll be really easy for you to think, oh, this is what would be best for me and what you think would work. And, you might have some initial really great idea, but before talking to the customer and empathizing and asking them questions, you won't know what it is that they need. And they're the ones who are at the center of it. So although you might be able to relate, you really have to take yourself out of the scenario.
And when you present something, right, like if you say that this is like, I actually ran into this when I presented when I did this case competition at EY, but we presented based on all of our own thoughts. And then you had other team, we felt like this would work. We were putting ourselves in the shoes of the user. And we had other teams we were competing against who actually went and talked to people. They interviewed a bunch of people. They were like, well, what are the different pain points you're facing? What's your experience like? And they had a sample size of 50 people. Instead of us showing up with 4 to 5 people, oh, this is what we think will work right off the bat. They were very diligent, and they researched, and they really got on this. They did this what we'll call feet on the street approach, where they really went and talked to end users. and they said, what are you facing and what are the problems that you have? And that's a much more compelling story, and it's much more representative of the actual audience that's going to end up using the product. So keep that in mind, you know, end user, and then also as much research as possible.
And a lot of terms being tossed around, right? But one thing everyone to remember, and Jake did touch on this, is you have the flexibility to define what a product is, what an end user is, to still apply this school of thought, right? A product doesn't have to be an end product sold to a customer. It can be a tool that your own employees are using. It can be a process that your customers go through, or something that your customers interact with to understand your product, like a help guide or like a menu if we're talking about, let's say, a restaurant. A lot of different ways to apply this school of thought, but at the end of the day, you're keeping thoughts centered around the customer or the end user or the person, the human being who's going to interact with what you're defining as the product. And I think that should, like Jake, you were starting to transition this to the exercise we'll be going through, but I think that's important to frame up as this exercise. We'll take a look at something you might not have thought as applicable to this scope of problem solving, but it is.
Yep.
100%.
Those were great points.
So I want to pause here really quick. If there's any questions in the chat or people have it, I know we have 117 people on here, so it might be hard to do that, but wanted to take a quick minute if there are questions for us as an EY team before the MCG team kind of takes over and leads through this activity. And then I left this up here, so if you do want our contact info for questions or whatever it may be, feel free to reach out. But I don't know if there's anything in the chat.
Yeah, there's no questions in the chat yet. If any questions, you could just type it out. But you know, one thing I just want to emphasize is this design thinking thought process could, you know, directly be applied to the McDonald's case. You want to think about the customer and you want to think about their pain points. You want to, you know, then use those pain points to come up with solutions and an end goal with ultimately how the entire McDonald's experience is going to be improved upon for those different personas. So the exercise we're going to be doing, Alana had mentioned it, it's using a tool called Mural. Mural, you could get a free trial. You could use it for, I think, 30 days or so. So if you want to do this design thinking thought process with your team, when you're looking at the McDonald's case, you could sign up for Mural. And if you want to potentially reference that in your appendix slides when it comes to the presentation, that's great. You don't have to, but we think, you know, this Mural tool is a great platform that really helps with this design thinking process, and it's interactive, so other people can use it at the same time as you. So give it another 30 seconds for questions, and then if not, we'll move on to our Mural exercise.
And Joe, I can't see the chat here. I don't know why. So let me know if there's anything that's coming up.
Yeah, we got nothing so far.
I don't think we have any questions, which hopefully means we did a great job at explaining everything. But obviously, if you have any further questions, feel free to reach out to us on LinkedIn or by email. We're happy to answer anything.
Yeah, and this exact team that you saw present today will be in touch with you guys throughout the competition. We'll be there to chat, whatever it may be, office hours. I'm not sure how it's going to work yet, but just know that we will be here throughout. So we're happy to continue to talk. All right, Joe, if we have nothing else, I'm going to toss it to you.
All right, let me just set up the Mural.
If I can ever get off this screen share, I just.
You guys can see this Mural, right?
Yeah,
you can.
good.
Perfect. Okay. So hi everyone. So MCG's kind of come up with this, you know, problem and plan that we're going to walk through today. That EY helped us plan out. So what we're going to try and really focus on the design thinking problem from the beginning to the end. So that starts with your problem statement. We couldn't do it based on the McDonald's case. We don't want to give you the answer on how to do design thinking related to McDonald's. So we came up with this problem, you know, that's pretty applicable to everyone, the Binghamton dining hall. So the problem statement that we came up with is, due to COVID-19, there have been many restrictions placed on the Binghamton dining halls. As a result, students have felt isolated while in the dining halls. So the next thing, once you have your problem ID, your problem statement related to the McDonald's problem, then you want to think about your customers, or really the term we like to use is personas. So here we've come up with 3 personas centered around user research. which Bella could start to lead it off, and then the MCGE board will be taking on one of the three personas.
Yeah, so here we have, as Joe mentioned, our user research. So on the left-hand side, you'll see a little bit more of an in-depth overview of our three personas from information gathered. So user research can usually be conducted through interviewing different potential personas or users who use the product. And on the right-hand side, we'll see a condensed version of that. So I'm gonna let our persona James start off with describing himself a little bit on the left-hand side.
Sure thing. So, hi, I'm James. I'm a sophomore student who's heavily involved in the Binghamton community. As a marketing student who's also taking 18 credits and heavily involved, something that really matters to me is constantly being able to have a quick meal, especially being on the go. So kind of condensing it, just trying to find a dining hall experience where even if I'm a rush, I could still get the food that I want.
So James gave us a lot of great information there, but we want to start to pull and concentrate on certain areas that we can work to solve. So based off of all of the information that James just provided us, we decided to pull a few need statements, including the fact that James is a sophomore, and he's constantly on the go, so he needs a quick meal. So that's really what we're going to be focusing on for that first persona, is that speed and efficiency of retrieving the food from the dining hall. We can move on to Tyler to hear a little bit more about his dilemma.
So I'm Tyler. I'm a transfer student who has a lot less responsibilities compared to James. But I also have a gluten allergy, so I have a very restricted diet because of that. And I really want to meet and interact with a lot of new people because as a transfer student, I didn't really get to meet anyone in the Binghamton community last year. So I'm really trying to find ways to socialize in the dining halls. But I also want a way to take out food and have takeout options for when I do get busy.
So based on what Tyler's telling us, he had a couple of different insights about his experiences, and we really want to concentrate on the fact that Tyler is a transfer student, so he has the need that he really wants to meet new people within the dining halls. And especially with everything going on with COVID, we want to start to think about ways in which we can approach this and different more targeted pain points that Tyler may face. So moving on to Jen, if Jen wants to overview some of her background information.
Hi everyone, I'm Jen and I'm a dining hall worker at C4. I'm married with one child and I have asthma, so staying safe during COVID is my top priority. I'm afraid of getting COVID and bringing it back home to my family, and I work full time, so I would like a safe place to eat during my lunch break.
So some of the needs that we're pulling from Jen that we really want to prioritize is the fact that Jen has some issues with asthma, so we're going to work on prioritizing her health, and she needs to be able to have a healthy place to work and be socially distant at the same time. So those are the three needs that we're going to concentrate on as we move forward with this problem ID set. And we're going to take a little bit more targeted look into some of the users' pain points, and I'm going to pass it off to Joe and our three personas to overview for that.
So after you do your user research and defining your personas and coming up with the blanket needs statement, you want to come on to what we're going to call either the pain points or the journey map. And so what these pain points are is you're going to come up with a few different questions or statements from the start of the experience to the end of the experience, whether it's related to the McDonald's case or any other design thinking process you're doing. But for this example, we came up with 5 questions related to the dining hall experience. So we have these 3 smiley faces on the left side, which indicates satisfaction, neutral, or a pain point or a disappointment. So the first one is knowledge of the dining halls and their daily operations. So what we're going to have to do is have James, Tyler, and Jen each take their Post-it note, their sticky note, and move it to their satisfaction level based on their persona. So here we can see that Jen and James are both knowledgeable about the dining halls. Jen obviously works there, so she knows what goes on in the dining halls and their daily operations. James is a sophomore student, so he was a part of the dining halls last year. He ate in the dining halls every day, so he's familiar with the operations of how to order food, where to find the food offerings for the day online. Whereas Tyler's a new transfer student. He hasn't gotten this experience yet. So Tyler, you want to talk a little bit about why this is a pain point for you?
Yeah, so this would be a pain point for me because I have never gone to the dining halls before this year. And especially with COVID, at the beginning of the semester was all those prepackaged things, but now There's the lines where you can actually pick out the food. So with all the changes kind of going on because of COVID and overall just not knowing what the dining halls were before coming here, I have a really hard time kind of understanding what the options are at the different dining halls, where I can go, and what I can really get at each place.
Perfect. And then when you're doing your McDonald's case analysis, you want to, focus on these pain points when you're coming up with your recommendation and solution. So after we come up with these pain points, we're going to, open the floor to the students, everyone who's on the call now. We're going to ask you to come up with recommendations based on the pain points that you've seen for these different students and overall recommendations, and be pretty creative with your solutions as to how you can improve upon the overall dining hall experience. Over the next couple of minutes, as we're finishing up this pain points, try to think of, some potentially pretty creative solutions. We're asking one thing is that you become, creative as possible. And then if we have to, we'll scale back on that creativity to come up with a reasonable solution. So the next pain point and the next statement that we're going to be looking at is ease of placing an order. So Jen and Tyler are pretty neutral about this, but James has identified our pain points. So James, you maybe want to talk about why this is painful?
Sure thing. So due to the COVID-19 restrictions, as well as maintaining social distancing and the limited options, it's very hard to be constantly fast because there's going to be longer lines due to less people operating in restricted options. So because of the longer lines, it's much more frustrating to place an order. And as a person who's on the go, I'm trying to just pick up my food and leave. So having to wait in a line is kind of a nuisance.
Got it. Perfect. All right. The next statement that we're going to be looking at is satisfaction with the dine-in seating options in a socially distant environment. So James is neutral about this one, but Tyler and Jen seem to have some issues here. So Jen, you want to talk about first why this is one of your pain points?
So this is one of my pain points because during the peak lunch hours when my break is, it's really hard for me to find a table that's far enough away from other students.
And Tyler, what about you?
For me, I really want to find a location where I'll be able to eat and meet people. And currently it's really hard for me to find a place that's indoor where I can really, sit down near people and have a conversation and try to meet them and eat with them.
Perfect. All right, next, we're talking about the efficiency of the takeout process. So far, everything we've focused on is within the dining hall, but some people resort to takeout options. So let's see where everybody's pains or motivations come from. Looks like everyone's pretty neutral about this. I know, James, one of your main concerns is the takeout process. Do you want to talk a little bit about how that process is affecting you right now?
Yeah, sure thing. So the reason why I put it as neutral and not a pain point is because a lot of things are prepackaged. It's pretty easy to take things out. You just grab it and go. So it's pretty efficient. The only thing that would really be a pain point is the longer lines of waiting to check out. But otherwise, it's not as painful as placing an order because the lines should be longer because there's more people getting food than when you're getting it out.
Got it. All right, and the final statement that we're looking at is your safety or comfort level while waiting, ordering, paying, and dining in. So James and Tyler are neutral with this one. They're students, so they know how COVID may affect them. But Jen is a high risk individual. So Jen, you want to talk a little bit about some of your concerns within the dining hall?
Well, sometimes students don't follow all of the regulations when they're paying. And since I'm a cashier, that gets me a little bit nervous about getting sick.
Perfect. So now after we've done this, we've kind of looked at this journey that each of the personas go through their experience. We have some pain points for the different personas. We have an idea of what each different persona is looking for, where they're happy and currently satisfied with the dining hall experience. Or we could also see from this pain point map where some of their main concerns are. So next I'll pass it to Bella to talk about, what we've kind of so far concluded from this.
So as our next step, we want to start to concentrate some of the information that we've learned from our users and where their pain points are in order to really condense that broad problem you're trying to solve, similar to how Alana was working through it in the slides. So based off some of the information that we got from our users, we were able to conclude that one of the problems we want to focus on tackling is how can we create social dining experiences while also accommodating socially distant barriers. So based on the information we got from our users, we noted that socially distant barriers were having a harsh effect on some of the experiences. So we want to think about ways of which we can start to improve this while still making those accommodations.
Notice how at the beginning, our blanket problem statement was pretty general. It was due to COVID-19, there have been many restrictions placed on the dining hall. As a result, students have felt isolated within the dining halls. After going through these personas in our user research and coming up with our pain points for our different personas, we've been able to expand on that to create a more direct problem statement that we're going to use for our brainstorming and recommendations. So now we're going to open the floor to the students. We want you guys to start to throw out some potential solutions that could be accommodating to either one of the personas individually or multiple of the personas altogether. Hopefully some of the students here are either freshmen or sophomores who eat in the dining halls at a regular basis. So hopefully you guys have an understanding of what's going on in the dining halls already and, potentially what you think could be improved upon. So we'll give you guys like about 30 seconds to come up with some solutions, and then we'll ask you to use either the chat or the raise hand function. You could start to toss out some ideas. Again, we're asking you to be creative as possible, and then we'll kind of talk through your idea, whether it's feasible or not, and then potentially, if needed, scale back on that creativity.
While you guys are thinking, I just want to address a question that was popped up in the chat about including this in your appendix slides. And we highly encourage including screenshots or workthroughs of this process in your appendix, as it helps us to understand your thought process. And one of the great things about the platform that we're using, and I highly recommend to use it to go through this process, is that everything is on the same workspace. So if Joe were to zoom out, you would be able to see the way of which we worked through all of these steps and how it leads us to the brainstorming phase. So I definitely recommend trying to experiment and work with Mural in order to go through this. It just makes it a little bit more accessible, and it allows that collaboration to really start going.
As you guys are offering ideas in the chat, I'm going to be starting to put them into the Mural. We could kind of talk through a couple of these ideas. This is what you're going to want to do during your case analysis. You're going to want to toss out multiple ideas, design thinking related towards your McDonald's case, come up with a few different recommendations or solutions, and then eventually kind of tone it down to your 3 main recommendations that are, directly tied into your problem statement.
Can you put the link to this presentation in the chat?
We currently don't have a link for it, but I believe it's going to be uploaded to YouTube in the future, probably at the end of the week. We're currently recording it, and so that's probably how we're going to communicate it. I'm sure we could, I'm not sure how to send out this mural, but I think we could figure out a way to send out this mural to everybody to look at.
We could take screenshots and toss it in as an appendix. Oh, unless Jake has one.
No, that was exactly what I was just going to say.
Okay.
I would toss it. I would take screenshots.
Like we're encouraging our students to. So.
Yeah, because you're going to end up with 150 people on this mural, and I think it might explode.
We've got a lot of recommendations, so I apologize if not everybody's recommendation is posted, but let's see what we got so far. There's about like 25 more messages that I didn't get a chance to look at. We have about 18 up here now, or 14. So let's start to walk through their first 14 or so. All right, so first one, offer plastic gloves to allow students in a rush not to have to wait to order food. So if you, for whoever posted this idea, if you want to unmute yourself and talk about it a little bit, you can. If you don't feel comfortable talking, that's totally fine as well. We could talk through it a little bit.
Hi, do you guys hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, that was my idea. It's because you're not allowed to grab your own food when you go into a dining hall, like the plates that are already like pre-made, because, well, you like spread germs like that way. So offering like plastic gloves allows like students to be able to like use their plastic gloves and throw them out after and not have to wait for a server to give the food in case they're not there at the time.
It's a pretty interesting idea, and you know, it goes specifically with one of the pain points that I believe it was James had identified, that he has a long wait time when he's waiting for his food.
And it doesn't hurt anybody else at the same time.
Exactly, and it's a pretty simple solution. So I like that one a lot.
Thank you very much.
We'll move it to the right side, I guess, for now. Let's see, multiple lines based on food amount, entree versus non-entree, face shields for dining hall staff.
Yeah, that was fine. For that one, I just thought, okay, so if you have multiple lines, then and like staff stationed at each line separately, as long as you have enough space for that, then you can have people ordering food. Let's say you have like 3 takeout boxes, then you're going to be in the line for a longer time. It's sort of like in Wegmans when you have the 10 items or less aisle. So something to speed up the lines. And then for the dining hall staff, they could have face shields, because like right now they don't have those. And it's a way to make the spread of the virus more preventative.
One of the things that you brought up when you're talking about your reasoning was with the multiple lines, you could do this if space permitted. So that's one of the main problems that this recommendation has. Yes, in theory, having multiple lines makes sense, but it may not be totally possible given the amount of space. So that's kind of an example of how your design thinking thought process may go. You may think of something that says, okay, this may be applicable, but then the more you talk through it, you may realize, okay, it may not totally be feasible or done in a logistic manner.
Yeah.
Let's see if there's some more out there ideas. Create an app that would allow you to order food ahead of the time. If you came up with that idea and you want to talk about it a little. If no one's gonna talk about it, that's fine. Maybe if either Mark, Anna, or Josh want to talk about this idea and whether it be feasible or not. Or let's, instead of saying Mark, let's talk about James, who Mark's taking on his persona. So James, would an app potentially interest you for your takeout options where you could order food ahead of time, pick it up, and then go on your way to your busy day?
So I think it really honestly depends, because the main issue at the core of it is the lines. And so if every single person decided to go to the app just to make their life convenient, the lines to pick it up would be just as long. And so you really have to figure out a way not just to create an app, but figuring out how do you reduce the lines. And so that's the main pain point that I honestly go through. And so how do you create an experience that alleviates the lines itself? So as long as you maybe within the app, you have allotted times and you make sure that only a certain capacity can pick up at a certain time, that might be a way to enhance the app in order to create a more valuable experience that reduces lines.
Got it. See, so, in theory, that idea makes sense, especially for James, who's, always on the go. But, it doesn't totally, right now, we don't have a solution as to how it's going to cut down on the line time for him. Let's see what else we have. Bella, or if anyone else from the EY side has an idea that stands out.
I was gonna say, the suggestion tossed in about scheduling dining and eating times in the dining hall via open table. Rusty kind of takes that app idea with a new light, with more of a pinpointed focus on really actually working on the scheduling of times. So that could be a new way to bring that idea out and make it work for the problem you're trying to address.
Has some potential. Jake, I believe you were the one who suggested this drone delivery of meals on the way to class. This is one of the
every single one of our meetings.
This is one of the more creative solutions that we came up with. So let's see if we could potentially tone down a little bit on the creativity and see if we can make it work.
Why tone down? Why can't we have drones deliver meals?
If you want to figure out a way, we can make it happen.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just like, if you have ways to space people out, I mean, you have geolocation of pretty much every student on campus. So if there's a way, like drone was just something I thought about, but I also thought about like pickup and delivery pods essentially. Like, why can we not have those across campus that aggregate certain food options? Maybe it's like, I think about like near Hinman and Mountain View, like if there was an opportunity to like on the way to class grab it, it spreads people out, keeps them out of the dining hall, keeps them outside, but also gets them what they need.
That kind
So
of
I'm just
goes.
thinking like you have so many data points about students. You have what they constantly order. You have, well, likely if you're using an app, you have their location on campus and you have possibly their class schedule. So why not be predictive about it and try to make it easier for them?
I think you brought up a good point. You know, food on the go. And one of the things that kind of goes along with that was the suggestion that was directly under your drone delivery idea is curbside pickup for people who want socially distant transactions or a faster takeout process. And I think you kind of mentioned it, Jake. You could either have them, you know, some kind of curbside pickup ideas up in Mountain View, up in C4 by the Union. And this would, you know, I guess the only challenge you could think of immediately is if it's, you know, not, you know, in the actual dining hall, how do they get the food from the curbside pickup point to the dining hall while also keeping it warm? But there's some potential there, and that kind of shows the thinking thought process that goes into it.
Hey, can I ask a question from Jake?
Fire away.
Hi, this is Sahar. So for your drone idea, just curious for all the limitation that drone can have. What about like Kiwi type of robots that are already implemented in like UC Berkeley and other campuses, that little robots that can keep it warm and kind of get it to where they are, and you don't have that like flying like limitation and other problems with the
100%.
drone, also the weight.
Yeah, I did not even know that existed, but I think if there's something more suitable, then why not? Let's go for it.
Yeah, and just to chime in quickly, right? One thing we want to keep in mind and that we want to encourage everyone when you go through this phase amongst your team, solving this problem or other problems in the future, is the idea during the brainstorming stage too is we want to basically remove any preconceived biases, any restrictions. We want unlimited creativity. To quote Russell Wilson, we want unlimited creativity, right? So the point is, you know, the way you get to the most innovative solution sometimes is you put something down on paper that sounds ridiculous until you figure out how to make it work, and then all of a sudden, you know, sitting at home and streaming movies instead of going to a store to pick one up is no longer ridiculous. Streaming music instead of buying a CD is no longer ridiculous. The idea that your friends will care about what you have to say in a 140 character post on a forum no longer becomes ridiculous, right? So during this phase, I want to encourage everyone, you know, remove all restrictions. Don't think about money, don't think about cost, don't think about regulations, you know, I mean, creative solutions, when you start to remove those restrictions, Jake's drone idea comes into play. Forcing students to get chips installed in them to track all of their movement comes into play, right? Things that, sure, once you then move out of brainstorming and into, you know, your like idea selection, that's when you'll have to start thinking about how realistic something is. But definitely when you're in brainstorming, you're trying to think of any and all things possible.
I think that was a really good point that Adam brought up, is don't, you know, put restrictions on yourself. An idea of a drone delivery on a college campus for your food is totally out there, but, you know, who knows, maybe one day it's going to happen. Maybe, you know, through a little brainstorming and design thinking, you're able to come up with an idea how to make it attainable. And, you know, don't limit yourself. I know I mentioned at one point, you know, scale back your creativity. Try not to. Try to, you know, fully throw an idea out there and make it work. You know, be a little creative with it, have a little fun. Hopefully with this McDonald's idea, you're able to come up with, you know, some creative solutions for a company that everyone should be familiar with. And I think that, you know, this is a really good process on how to go about doing it. So this part of this exercise.
Sorry, Joe, yeah,
oh boy.
Jake and I probably want to say the same things. Jake, I'll let you go first.
Okay, fine. Okay. So one thing I want to say is yes, we want you to think of whatever you can, combine crazy ideas, come up with whatever you can. Like none of these like new age tech companies were created by just thinking inside the box. Sure, all of that's true. But when it comes to actually executing this and weeks and a month down the line, and we deal with this daily, there's great ideas, but we need to find a way to make them implementable. So we're going to talk about, how do you plan to build this? What are your immediate next steps? Keep that in mind as you go through this process. Just don't let that be a constraint on you right now. Throw whatever you want against the wall, see what sticks. And then if you come back with this couple of ideas, then you can work on how to make it buildable, implementable, realistic, right? But we just don't want you to start with this tiny box and try to think inside of it. Think about whatever you can, combine some ideas together, come up with as out there solutions as possible. And then as you narrow down and come up with a single solution or two solutions, whatever it may be, then you can think about and be strategic about how this is going to be executed and built. Because at the end of the day, you can have a phenomenal idea, but if you can't build it and if it can't be used by a customer, it provides no value. So just keep that in mind, but don't let it constrain you up front.
Yep. I was basically going to say the same exact thing, Jake, and just wanted to connect it further to how you apply it for solving a case. Just to say that, when you're in brainstorming, you're thinking of everything. But as you move out of brainstorming and when you're trying to get to your ultimate like recommendations, right? That's where you need to start thinking about the real considerations. And that's when you identify your assumptions, but you also do your research. So if you're going to go forward with something that is aggressive, are there data points out there that can tell you that, yeah, this should be perceived or received well by the customer, or this could be a profitable solution? But then likewise, you may have assumptions and questions you define where you say, if you were to go forward and engage our consulting team to help you through a 1-year project, we would need to know A, B, C, D in order to really right size and project how this would work for your company. So that's what you should be thinking about when you ultimately go to put your recommendations down on paper, is what are the questions that we as UI or the MCG board are going to ask you to kind of poke holes in your recommendations, and how can you defend those recommendations, and what are you going to need to be upfront that you don't know and would need to work with the company to understand when you get to implementation. So that's all I wanted to add there.
I was gonna say that, but I think Adam said it better than I could. So hopefully this design thinking exercise was useful, and you really have an understanding of what design thinking is, and you're better off now than you were at the start of the hour. So for this exercise, we weren't planning on coming up with our 3 recommendations, but if we were, we would kind of test through all these different ideas that we have, and then move forward with 2 or 3 of them, and then go through the normal case analysis. Fully flesh out those recommendations. Come up with an implementation plan, which is going to be pretty important for this case, especially if you're tossing out some pretty creative ideas, the cost that may be incurred with those recommendations, and then whatever risks may be occurring. So I hope we did a good job of relating this design thinking idea to you. So I think hopefully you're able to use this thought process for your McDonald's case, and hopefully it's all made sense. So I guess
one thing to add.
Yeah.
I don't know why I have an awful echo again, but there are rules for this competition, right? But there really are no rules when it comes to brainstorming and problem solving. If you want to vet your ideas with your parents, with whoever you want, and get feedback, or with your roommates, be like, hey, does this sound like something you would use or is valuable? That's good, because you're essentially talking to your end user, your end customer, right? Every single person you encounter on campus is a potential end user of your product, whether they're a janitor, a student, a professor, or they work at Sodexo. Any of the people could end up using this. So use this as an opportunity to ask them questions, to do your initial research before you start brainstorming. Ask them, and sorry, this is if we were to take this throughout TechX, but take the same approach as you go through this process. And just really know that the more information you have, the better upfront. And then also the more feedback you get on your ideas, the better, because it will help you enhance them and tailor them better to a single user. So just keep that in mind. Like, we love to just take our ideas and like, we set up a bank branch one day with a new product, and we just like, as people came through Union Square, we like asked them to click through it and see what the problems they encountered were. Like, obviously you don't have to go to that extent, but like, be active about this. Go out there and try to solve this.
Yeah. And the other thing I was going to add to that, Jake, too, is, you know, the user research, air quotes around that, right, that you're going to do for this case is obviously going to be different than how you would do it in real life problem solving situation. You don't have access to, you know, 1,000 different diverse demographic population to sort of put through trial or Q&A. But what you can do is use what you have available to you. That is data online, that's data in the case, that's descriptions in the case, to try to paint a picture of a couple of the average personas that are core to McDonald's customer base, that are part of target new markets that McDonald's may be interested in, that are part of formerly core based consumers or customers that they're starting to lose to competition, right? So start to think about, you know, more than just the college student persona that's going to come immediately to your mind, and think about, you know, the wants and needs of a diverse group of people, to try to develop your recommendations that will address in an optimal form all of those needs to generate the best possible outcome for McDonald's. And what you might find is, to generate the best net positive outcome for McDonald's, you actually have to alienate one of those groups. And you may find out that you can develop solutions or propose a recommendation that is going to equally satisfy all those groups. But the point is to account for them all, go through your recommendations, and figure out what the optimal solution is to maximize benefit for McDonald's. And this applies to not just McDonald's, and this is problem solving in general as well, but wanted to make sure you're able to make that connection. So yeah, I'll pass it back to Joe. I don't know if there's anything else you want to do for a wrap up here.
Yeah, I think we could do some questions first.